You never registered as a super, since your superpower is widely considered a disability. One day, you meet the biggest supervillain of your time by chance, only to find out they have the exact same superpower. I trudged home from work, the usual slight headache preventing me from appreciating how nice the weather was. The headache was a side effect of suppression pills, widely available over the counter due to the millions of ordinary people with inconvenient minor powers. No one wanted feet that are always a bit sticky, to sense the intentions of cockroaches, or be covered in fur. Well, there are always exceptions. In my case, a single day without suppression pills left me practically debilitated, as I had been reminded yesterday morning when my last remaining pill slipped from my sleepy fingers and down the sink drain. It only took about 20 minutes to get a fresh supply delivered from the pharmacy downtown, but even in that short time I had started to have symptoms not dissimilar to a panic attack. Now, as I approached my apartment building and keyed in my security code, the squeeze of anxiety momentarily returned. There should have been another 15 or so hours of protection on my current dose, so what could be the matter? The headache remained, as if to reassure me that the drug was still active. Passing quickly through the door and lobby to the elevators, I furiously jabbed the buttons to take me to my floor, everything taking too long. I clearly needed to rest, and this stupidly snail-paced box was slowing me down. Reaching my floor seemed to take ages, though it couldn't have been more than 2 minutes in reality. Practically running to my door, I unlocked it with another keypad entry code and stepped in. A wave of relief swept over me, as if I was already in a relaxing shower. The woman at the table smiled warmly, her gray-blue eyes intently watching my face as she indicated the second chair with the small pistol in her gloved left hand. As I routinely dumped my small shopping bag on the kitchen counter, kicked off my shoes, and moved to join her, my brain started to catch up to what was happening. A surge of true fear brought clarity like a lightning strike. This person was affecting my mood and thinking. Her smile tightened as I faltered only a step away from my designated seat, and a bit of strain flickered across her expression before she appeared to relax and lean back, maintaining the aim of her pistol as the anxiety and compulsion I had just been experiencing vanished, replaced by what I should have been feeling since coming in here, fear and anger toward this stranger that was in my home with a gun. I sat, slowly, studying every bit of her expression and body language as I did so. You're very practiced at keeping everyone out, aren't you? I wonder if things would have turned out differently for me if I had been permitted that luxury. Her voice was high but slightly husky, as if she were mostly recovered from a sore throat. Do you know why I'm here? My gaze never left her face as I answered, voice trembling slightly with adrenaline. No idea, except that it's not to kill my insignificant ass. You've used that gun before, but if you wanted me dead you'd be aiming somewhere more vital than my shoulder. Details like this never escaped me. Even with my ability suppressed, my entire being was still bent toward what it believed was biological destiny. You believe that you're a broad-spectrum empath. She gestured dismissively before I could answer. It hadn't been a question. You were raised to know all about how common and useless your power is, she continued, talking to the wall as if to avoid my penetrating gaze. Everyone knows that narrow-spectrum telepathy can be useful, but BSEs like yourself can't possibly process the amount of information that bleeds constantly from the mind of a single individual, let alone a crowd. It's suppression pills, burnt-out emotional processing, or madness for people like you. She cocked her head slightly to the side as her eyes found mine again. Like us. Everything that she was saying was common knowledge, except her implication that she was somehow an exception to the rule, or that I could be. There were no exceptions to the rule, which is why the register didn't have a single BSE since the Stare, who had been a clinical psychopath and committed murder-suicide shortly into his career. The only problem with dismissing her claim was that she clearly believed what she was saying. Nothing for it then but to hear her out. I subtly shrugged to indicate that I had no response for her. You obviously ran out of suppression pills yesterday morning, she continued after a moment. I found your new full bottle on the nightstand, not a good indicator when they're right by the bed, she added with a smirk. I felt you from halfway across the city then and tracked you down all day yesterday and today. An alarm siren might as well have gone off there on the table. She must be the most powerful empath ever born if she had sensed me at that distance, let alone in a crowded city. But that couldn't be right. Her ability was clearly to actively affect my mind, not passively receive my thoughts. She's a powerful telepath who somehow singled me out for niggas knows what, I reasoned. The only way to get out of this is to make her see that she's mistaken about my being of real value. She was still speaking. I tuned back in as she said, here to help you reach the same place. You've heard of me, even if no one knows exactly who is behind the moniker. I'm Riot. Actual terror gripped my heart and made it skip a beat. Riot was the most notorious supervillain on Earth or Luna. Anonymously, they created uprisings using mass psychosis to disrupt politics, commerce, infrastructure, and social cohesion before leaving the victims dazed and confused about why they had acted that way for minutes or hours on end. Anonymity and the ability to control even most supers meant that Riot was incredibly effective at destroying whatever and whoever was the target. If this woman was Riot, I was as good as dead. I needed to find a way too. With a pop like an old-fashioned toy cork gun, her pistol jumped and sent a dart into my shoulder it had been covering during the conversation. Jumping up backwards and away from my chair, I stumbled immediately and fell heavily onto my side, knocking out my breath and painfully banging my head against the floor. As Riot remained seated, I wheezingly turned and crawled away for a few feet. When the veil fell away, whatever she had injected me with was counteracting the suppressant, and the weight of the city's inhabitants' innermost beings pressed into my mind. Thousands upon thousands of voices, cries, emotions, and opinions began fighting for my attention. Pure chaos immobilized me as I distantly felt tears begin pouring down my face as I gripped my head with both hands in the fetal position. Resigning myself to madness without hope, I suddenly found a cluster of my neighbors whose minds were all moving together in an orderly fashion. They were each entirely focused on counting their fingers. It felt less unhinged than the rest of the chaos, so I jumped in among them, linking my thoughts to theirs as I began counting. 1, 2, you delivered to the wrong address and. I fought to push away the man berating a delivery service over the phone, trying to reassert the shelter of finger counting. As I struggled to shut down the extraneous noise, his voice calmed and began counting with me. 3, 4, 5. I suddenly found myself in a great chorus of voices, great and small, counting our fingers together by the tens of thousands. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now our toes. I wasn't the conductor of this crowd. My eyes fought their way back to the table, where Riot sat, smiling triumphantly. I felt the order, the discipline that had been imposed on her by a powerful father figure, flowing into me and through to every other mind I touched. If the voices are too many, count your fingers until they are all one, his heavily accented voice told me from across the years. I joined the many thousands in mechanically removing my shoes and began counting the toes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is amazing. You are so powerful, so beautiful, her thoughts came to me as I continued to count. I never could hope to manage so many at one time by myself, but together we can run this city. I revolted for a moment, trying to escape her scheme for total domination, but as I escaped her control I also lost her discipline and the chaos came roaring back, redoubled as the citizens began to be confused or panicked over the seeming mass decision to remove their shoes and count toes. I faltered, but had no choice but to flee back to shelter, to the fortress that was her rigorously practiced mental control. Each time I faltered or undermined her will, the chaos returned to push me back to harbor. I began to lose track of my personal attitude and intentions, forced to concentrate on keeping the chaos at bay by conforming to her whim. We began to push farther, reaching more and more people until hundreds of thousands were all joined in removing their foot coverings to count the digits. He would be so proud of me, we thought, this is what he dreamed I could do. We will finally pull down the enemy and make him lick my boots clean. I gave one last effort, trying to impose my will on hers alone, allowing the other voices to drive me mad if they would. The attempt did nothing, as her iron will overruled mine to re-establish the we. We laughed at the futility of the rebellion, and began directing the masses to destroy the city. My name had been Riot, but a new vessel and a new power deserved a new name. After only a few moments, we settled on one and began chanting it through our many mouths. We are Hive.